My name's Nikki Glover. I'm a Great Crested Newt Detection Dog handler. I'm also a senior ecologist and a PhD student at the University of Salford. And I'm going to be talking about detection dogs, a viable method to locate Great Crested Newts terrestrially. So a bit of background on myself. So it's back in 2014, I was working on a translocation scheme, and I was trying to find Great Crested Newts using traditional methods, and it was becoming really difficult. So I thought there's got to be a better way. And I basically found this Chartered Institute of Ecology and Environmental Management magazine. It had on the front cover Louise Wilson of Conservation Canine Consultancy. And she was using dogs to detect bat carcasses around wind turbines. So I looked into it a bit more and found Louise was also training dogs to detect Great Crested Newts back in, I think, about 2014, 2015 with David Orchard. And so I basically did everything that you shouldn't do. I then went away, got a puppy and started to train the dog myself. I initially imprinted her onto curry powder, which again, you shouldn't do at all. And then, basically went to Louise back in 2017 and said, can you have a look at my dog, see whether she's any suitable to do Great Crested Newt detection. So Louise basically said, you shouldn't be on curry powder. That odour is so big, you need to find a smaller odour for the dog to detect, a bit similar to Great Crested Newts. So we decided to imprint Freya onto bedbugs. So they've got a really small scent emission. So we basically had a look at Freya and myself to see whether we would be suited to detecting Great Crested Newts. So we passed the bedbug assessment, and then I went to Natural England in 2017 and said that we've passed, this assessment. Would it be possible to have a license? But because there was only one other person in the UK doing Great Crested Newt detection at the time, they wanted to see a bit more evidence, see how effective the dogs were before rolling out more licenses. So I said, well, why don't we do some more research as well, and we can see how effective the dogs are. So they basically issued the license in 2018, provision that I would do more research to show the effectiveness of the dogs. I met Robert Yale in a hurt workers meeting back in 2019, and we just started our Great Crested Newt detection dog trials at that point. And what I was finding with Freya out in the field was really correlating with Robert, what he found with his radio tracking studies. So we got talking, and Robert said, well, why don't you do a master's by research? So I said, oh, brilliant, we'll do that. So I started doing the master's by research, and that started opening up more and more questions. So we ended up transferring it over to a PhD. So I'm about 4 or 5 years into it now. So I've got about a year left to go. And the things we found is just absolutely incredible so far, which I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. But the research is really vital to understand how the factors can really influence the scent movement. When we understand a bit more about how these factors influence scent movement, we can really optimize the performance of the working dogs as well. So here's the team. So I've got Freya. She's the matriarch of newt detection. So she's on the right-hand side. She's an 8-year-old Springer Spaniel. She's going to be 9 next month. Sorry. She's been licensed since 2018. So each dog has their own license. So we basically imprint them onto a neutral odour first, which I mentioned earlier. That's bed bugs. And we basically assess the dog in different environments, make sure they've got a non-invasive indication before applying for our license through Natural England, to keep Great Crested Newts for the purpose of imprinting the dogs onto the scent. So we have to make sure that they pass a load of criteria before obviously going for that license. Natural England, it provides a bit more confidence with Natural England then as well, that the dogs are going to be suited to obviously doing Great Crested Newt detection. I've also got Nikki, so he's in the middle. So he's a 6-year-old Springer Cocker Spaniel mix. He's a rescue dog, and he was licensed in 2021. And then I've got Obi, so he's the apprentice. So he's only a 3-year-old Brittany Cross Spaniel, and he was licensed in 2023. Now, Obi's currently going through his assessments at the moment. So they will go on till about October time. He's doing really well so far, which is great. I have more than one dog, because if one dog indicates, it's great to have a second or a third dog to confirm the presence, especially if the newts are hidden in subterranean refuges or rocky crevices that we can't quite get to. It's great to have, obviously, a few dogs that we can also run over the same area. Also for welfare purposes, for rotating the dogs. So as a great crested newt detection is really sort of intricate hard work for the dogs. So it's important that we can rotate them, get the optimal effects from all of the dogs and make sure they're all working really well. And also for my PhD, it's great to have more than one dog to obviously study the effectiveness on a range of dogs. So what have we found out so far? So obviously in the UK we have more than one amphibian species, so it's important to make sure that the dogs are able to distinguish between great crested newts and other species such as toads, frogs, palmate newts and smooth newts. So we wanted to know, is the scent quite similar? Are the dogs likely to generalise, or can they locate the actual specific newts? So we did research trials with Freya and Nikki, and we basically had these plots, as you can see in figure 1. And in one plot, there was 8 holes in the ground with little containers, and in each one had different distraction scents, and then a great crested newt, as you can see in location 1. So on the figure 2, you can see Freya indicating on the great crested newt. So she's ignored all the other species and all the other distraction scents, such as gloves, and gone straight for the great crested newt and done a lie down indication. So both dogs basically got around 98% success rate. So they're telling us that the scent is really different, which is fantastic. I will be doing scent analysis as well, so it's got gas chromatography and mass spectrometry, just to understand exactly what the scent differences between the different species. Are there quite common components between them, or are they completely different? But from what the dogs are telling us, they are completely different. But I will be producing hopefully a scientific paper when I get time in the next year or so. But we do have to be really aware of emotional response to other amphibians as well. So obviously when I work Freya, I really love toads, and I have to be really careful about my emotional response to a toad, because Freya can really pick up on that when I'm out working operationally. Obviously with these trials she was fantastic, but it's just she can linger a bit if there are toads around, because she knows how much I love them, so I have to kind of ignore that and just carry on. But it is also very useful, because I can put Freya away, go back to that area, and obviously take the toads out of the location as well if we're doing a translocation. But it's important to turn off our ecology brain when we do detection dog handling, which takes a bit of time and getting used to. Also, when I was training the dogs at John Dixon's premises, and Freya indicated, but her indication wasn't very normal. So I went over to have a look, and as you see in figure 4, there's a great crested newt with a colour mutation, a colour and pattern mutation. So it was really fascinating. I think the newt must have felt like 99% like a great crested newt, but obviously with that different pigmentation, she must have picked something else up as well. So she didn't do a full indication. She seemed very confused, and she couldn't visually see it as well because it was hidden in the grass. So we've also found out that detection dogs are more effective than hand searchers. So obviously spring and summer months, the great crested newts may be refuging in the grass, and so we wanted to see how effective are they in comparison to obviously someone on their hands and knees searching for great crested newts, because this is an approved method as well. But we just don't know how effective it is. I know from doing hand fingertip searching, not very effective at all. But we wanted to put the dogs up against a hand searcher with over 20 years of experience. We had basically these plots that were fenced, so the ring fenced with great crested newt fencing, and we seeded each plot with 7 great crested newts in exactly the same locations. Obviously they can then move wherever they wanted to within the plots, but they couldn't get out of the plot for the trials. We then had the hand searcher go into one plot, and then me and another dog went into the other plot, and we started searching for them at the same time to see how many we could get within obviously a 30-minute time frame. The dogs got just under 100%, and the hand searcher was valiant effort. He got just under 40%. So that was when the grass scent was at 5 centimetres. When the grass scent was slightly higher at 15 centimetres, the detection dog effectiveness dropped only slightly. But there was a big drop in the hand searcher effectiveness. And then we got up to 60 centimetres. There was quite a big drop with the detection dogs, because obviously that grass is really obscuring that scent, because newts have such a small scent emission anyway, it was it was a lot harder for the dogs to kind of get their noses in, and we had to go a lot slower as well through the plot. So this study really kind of highlighted it's important if we're doing mitigation sites, we're using dogs to get that grassland down to a suitable level to make the dogs more effective and able to pinpoint where the great crested newts are a lot faster and efficiently. And yeah, I think factors such as temperature, humidity, weather conditions also can have an influence on the scent movement. So we also looked at detection at channel distances. So great crested newts refuge in inaccessible locations. So we wanted to know, well, can dogs detect them up to a 2-metre channel distance with no substrate interference? So we started with a board, as you see in that top figure, and we started with 25 centimetres. We had 8 pipes along the board with 1 great crested newt present within, and then the rest were blank. So Freya and myself had to pinpoint where the great crested newt was. So she would lie down and show me through her indication, and then I'd ask the assessor, and they would say yes or no. I wasn't able to see where they were as well. It was a blind assessment. And yeah, temperature and wind had an influence on detectability. Both dogs were able to get up to a minimum of 2 metres, and then we ran out of piping. So it'd be interesting to continue that study and see how far we can get when that scent is channelled. And operationally, we found great crested newts in structures such as stone walls, chambers, concrete paths, log piles, as well as under concrete slabs. So I was working on a job down in Somerset, and we were supposed to be, they were going to impact a concrete path in October time. So we ran Freya along the path, and she indicated at 3 points. So when we got the, obviously then applied for the licence, because we also found a great crested newt in the grassland, applied for a great crested newt licence, or low impact class licence. When we lifted up the concrete path sensitively, where she'd indicated there was great crested newts about 1/2 metre into the concrete path. So yeah, it was incredible method, and we've got no other tool that can do this. Yeah. And subterranean detection. So great crested newts are subterranean species, so they can refuge in mammal burrows down the side of newt fence and in spoil mounds as well. So we wanted to see, well, can the soil type influence the detectability? So in figure 1, as you can see there, we basically had the newt down in the bottom of the pipe, and then we had a fiberglass mesh just to stop the soil from falling down onto the newt, but allow that scent to move up the tube. And then we had sandy soil, which is quite a porous soil, and then clay soil, which obviously has a lot of moisture content. And we thought, well, the dogs would be much better at detecting great crested newts in sandy soil in comparison to clay soil. However, no, it was completely the opposite way around. The dogs were much better at detecting the newts in clay soil in comparison to sandy soil. We think that's because of the higher moisture content as well. So yeah, Freya managed to score 88% and Nikki got 92%. And it was about a 20 centimetre depth of clay and sandy soil treatment types. But yeah, if you want to hear more about, learn more about the study, we've got a paper out in +1, Glover et al., an experimental assessment of detection dog ability to locate great crested newts at distance and through soil. Also, operationally, we need to consider soil type when working on site. So it's important whenever I get to an operational site, when I work at Wessex Water and we're obviously doing any works within 250 metres of ponds, I look at that soil type and the dogs are working and it's quite a dry day. I know they're not going to be as effective on sandy soils in comparison to a clay soil where that odour will be better transported up to the surface. Our record of finding great crested newts is 55 in 2 hours. And we had an emergency job where we basically, a pipe was about to burst and we had to basically get in there with the dogs and detect great crested newts, move them out of the way so that the construction staff could get in and basically fix this pipe before there was a big pollution incident. So yeah, we managed to move 55 out, which was fantastic. And they weren't just on the surface, they were also 15 centimetres below ground as well, and the dogs were able to find the precise location. Yeah, and obviously it's a non-invasive tool, so it'd be really interested in to use the dogs over the winter as well, and kind of learn a bit more about the hibernacular, what they're using, you know, over the winter months, just to get a bit more information on that. And I've got a video which I hope will work on Freya searching. So she does a lie down indication when she finds me. Yeah, so you can really hear her sniffing that odour up through the ground. And at the time, I couldn't confirm that there was a great crested newt there. So we moved off, carried on searching. When we came back, the newt had actually emerged up to the top, the front of the top of the burrow. So yeah, it was a really nice sort of confirmation of her indication. But a lot of the times we have to kind of trust our gut if the dog's indicating, and think, you know, is there anything that could have caused a false indication? I can tell when Freya's definitely that was a lovely indication, that scent, that she's really sniffing that odour up through the through the burrow. So can any dog and handler do this? No, it's a very difficult odour to detect. Not every dog or handler is suited. It requires a lot of training. It takes a minimum of about a year to 2 years to become proficient at handling a detection dog. You've really got to have your eye in on their behaviour. Any slight change of behaviour, you really need to be able to pick up on. It's not that final indication that Freya obviously displayed. It's like a very tight, slight change of behaviour leading up to that indication that you really have to have your eye in on, and be able to understand all the environmental factors that can influence the detectability as well. It does require professional training. I've obviously gone through Louise Wilson of Conservation Canine Consultancy to do my training, and I still have her out now. We're 6 years into it, well, 7 years actually, and she comes out every year and she assesses each individual dog. She makes sure that we're still performing to operational standards and that we haven't slacked, or because we work very isolated, so it's important that we do have a third party eye looking at us and making sure that we are still working well. You need licensing as well, so you need great crested newt individuals to train on. You can't use, unfortunately, you can't use swabs, because you want the dogs to detect the actual live individuals, not residual scents. You want to know where they are, not where they've been. You need to be good at reading slight changes in dog behaviour. That's what I was saying just then. You need to turn off the ecology brain as well. So like I was saying earlier, try and turn off your emotional response to other amphibian species or anything else you're passionate about. You really have to focus and home in on the dog and what the dog's doing. So you really have to turn off that ecology brain. Also motivated and determined. So you can search for many hours with no fines as well. So yeah, yourself and the dog need to be prepared for that. Also working around livestock, wildlife, machinery, as well as other workers. A lot of the times I turn up to site and there's about 20 site workers watching. So yeah, you really have to get used to quite a big audience. Very diligent as well, and obviously passionate about amphibian conservation. So we have produced some guidelines, the advisors for detection dogs conservation, if you are interested. So it's been reviewed by Triturus, Natural England, Nature Scott. Obviously it highlights professional training is required, requires handler and dog assessments on neutral odour before licence is granted. Also assessment before operational deployment, and this is just to maintain operational standards. Obviously bad news travels further than good news, so it's really important that the dog teams that are being deployed are of suitable standards. We're also, myself and David are working on David Orchard working on ARG UK advice note currently as well, which will hopefully be published soon. Conclusion. So detection dogs can detect great crested newts on the surface in grassland at channeled distances, subterranean shelters. So I've obviously shown that through research as well as operational finds. More effective than traditional tools. They're only tool that we can use actually that can detect them at depth and that's in structures that we can't physically get to. It saves time and money. It's also fantastic PR. So if you want to raise awareness of the species that you're trying to conserve. Handlers need to be aware of how environmental factors and handler bias can influence detectability. Great Crested Newt detection is very difficult. Yeah, so you need to be very strong-willed and spend a lot of time on training. You need to seek professional training as well. It takes a minimum of 1 year. You need to be assessed for being operationally deployed. And the more you know, the more you don't know. I learn every single year, so I can definitely agree with this diagram. It's you don't, you think you know everything, and then the next season comes around, you learn completely new things, and every dog is different as well. Every environment is different. So yeah, it's really interesting. Big thanks to everyone that's helped so far with Great Crested Newt detection journey. It takes a whole village of people to make this successful. And it's just so lovely to be invited to things like the ARG AGM and talk about obviously what we've been doing with Great Crested Newt Detection Dogs. And if anyone is at the World Herpetological Congress, we'll also be running a symposium on the first day at 2 p.m. So if anyone's interested and wants to come along, then that would be great to meet you in person. Has anyone got any questions? We've got time.
Hi. Yeah, we do have some questions, Nikki. I'll ask. Hang on. So from Catherine, she says, have you looked at how long after GCN exposure the dogs can still detect them, and how long a GCN needs to be there before it imparts its scent?
It doesn't stay around for very long. We find it tends to stay in the environment. It all depends on climatic conditions as well. So obviously how wet it's been, that will retain the scent a bit longer. If it's quite a dry day, I find that the scent kind of dissipates a lot quicker. So it all depends on the climatic conditions at the time of the search. Obviously we want to train the dogs to actually find the individuals, not just where they've been. So we try to avoid working on residual scent.
Okay. She's also asked, have you looked at aquatic versus terrestrial? I'm assuming you've talked about terrestrial, but
yeah, we haven't done aquatic detection of Great Crested Newts yet. I think that would be a really fantastic study to do, especially looking at how effective it is in comparison to eDNA sampling, because you'll get the results right there in the field as well, instead of having to send off the results for lab analysis. So it'd be great to. I know that you can they use dogs to detect human remains underwater. I know they've been doing signal crayfish as well, detection, so and other amphibious, other aquatic species. So it can definitely be done. It's just nobody has decided to do it yet, and I'm just focusing on terrestrial. I think it'd be too much for my PhD to start doing aquatic as well.
Okay. And then we've got one more from Johanna. Where is the strangest place you found GCNs using the dogs?
Oh God, they seem to really like our manhole chambers. I don't know. I'm not sure why. They absolutely. I guess because it's quite warm and it's quite wet. But we seem to. One training site I have, they just always, the dogs are always indicating on the side of the chamber. And Freya once, was adamant there was one on the side of the chamber, but it was in the daytime, so I couldn't confirm. Went back at night, and her indication was slightly different. She was a bit further back, and I looked, and the newt had actually emerged from the side of the chamber, was sat out the front. So that was really interesting. I really want to find one in a tree. That's my aim. I have heard of them being found by a tree surgeon that managed to find one up in a tree. So it'd be interesting to.
We've had toads in trees, haven't we? It'd be really interesting to find newts in trees.
It'd be good to. I know Freya's been interested up a tree before at John Dixon's garden, but we couldn't quite work out whether the scent was just being moving up the trunk, or we weren't sure. But.
Okay, and then Johanna had one more question. Were the GCNs with mutations found in areas with limited dispersal ability?
No, there was. This was at John's place as well. There was dispersal ability. There was quite a few ponds around the area, and I'd been training there for quite a few years at that point. I think this was only the year before last, and we hadn't found that newt before, and John had never seen it, and he torches the ponds quite frequently. And I don't know, it was an adult as well, but we just one evening we found, and we found the same one about 3 times as well that season. So I don't. And that was the only one we found with that mutation at that site. So it had the same markings.
Cool. Oh, well, we can all go and look for GCN in trees for you. So I think we've got no more questions. Nikki, thank you so much for giving up your time to talk to us. I saw you speak before and I'm so excited. I mean, we've stuck to the same techniques for so long. It's really nice to find new things and novel ways of doing things. So I wish you every success, and yeah, we can all go out. And I've got a spaniel somewhere.
Oh, have you? Oh, nice.
Quite good at finding biscuits, but I'm not sure.
Oh, brilliant. No, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right.